Hello everyone, it's Guardian Mo's back online making another video. So as you can see, a bit of a different scenery to what I usually do, how I've recorded my videos. I just wanted to experiment with different ideas. So I've come to my local park, just taking advantage of the brilliant weather that we've been blessed with over this past few weeks really. So yeah, topic of the video. Is there a civil war that is imminent and that is coming to the UK? Now, funnily enough, in this video, I'm not actually talking about a civil war between the political left and the political right. Although that may be inevitable, there's only so much that we can take, that we can tolerate, and the government can push us way too far. And there could be a civil, mass civil unrest. And if they push us too far, well, a civil war would be inevitable. But anyways, I'm talking about a civil war between the Islamic community and the LGBTQ community. So some inner turmoil amongst these two ideologies on the political left. I want to tell you a story. So this was back in, there was this news headlines back in 2019. Way back. There was this primary school, They started pushing transgender material into the education curriculum. They were teaching kids about like genital mutilation, and all sorts of horrible stuff that they do to the human body. To convert a man to a woman or vice versa and all that shit. And so then as soon as the parents found out, there were about a group of 50 parents, and I believe like 95% of them were Muslim background. This school was somewhere in Manchester, by the way. I forgot exactly where it was. So this group of Muslim parents started staging a protest outside of the school. They went all apeshit about, transgender material being pushed through, and being taught to their kids. And this protest went on for days, I believe. It wasn't just one day. It was like 2 or 3 days. They started putting up placards and posters and staging protests outside, calling for a change in the curriculum. And so then the funniest part is that the mainstream media, BBC, Sky News and all the platforms, they tried to cover this because it made national news somehow. They tried covering this, and they were trying to figure out exactly which side they need to be supporting. They weren't sure whether they should side with the ethnic minority, the Muslim community, or the LGBTQ trans side of things. It was the funniest thing. My colleague and I at work, we were talking about it, and we were just laughing about it all day. We couldn't stop laughing about it because for the first time ever, we found out that the mainstream media were actually covering this headline with the most impartial perspective you could ever imagine coming from the mainstream media. I read the article. They were describing this whole incident as like, there were a group of parents. They didn't describe their background, by the way. These parents who were upset with this school, the primary school. They were upset and disappointed about the material that they were pushing through, and they thought it was inappropriate for their kids. So they wouldn't even name the background of the community background of these parents, nor would they name what kind of education material was being pushed through the curriculum and what was the controversy all about. This was the most impartial, possibly the only instance where the mainstream media was being unbiased and impartial. And so this just demonstrates a more sinister side of things, because the thing about Islamic ideology, this whole religion, their doctrines, their beliefs are completely opposite to what the LGBTQ transgender community stand for. These two are completely incompatible. These two ideologies, they cannot live in harmony with each other. They cannot marry with each other. Their core fundamental beliefs are totally different. It's like mixing oil and water. They don't mix, do they? It's because the nature of their beliefs, the core fundamentals of their doctrine, their ideology, just don't mix and match. They're not simpatico or anything. And I see all this sort of queers for Palestine nonsense going on. It's like, do you guys even understand or realize if you were in an Islamic country and you were a homosexual or transgender person, they would treat you like a heretic. They would hang you to death, torture you, and, you know, put you behind bars or something like that for 20 plus years. You know, they would treat you in the most horrible fashion. And, you know, it's just very strange to see, you know, this completely inauthentic, unnatural mixing of Muslims and, you know, LGBTQ people here in this country. It almost feels like both of these ideologies are trying to jostle around with each other, wrestling for media attention, and trying to garner as much support from the general public as much as they can. And it's almost like a competition between the two ideologies. You see, there was this recent BBC programme covering there was this mosque in the UK, and they were trying to feature how beautiful the interior of the design of the masjid and all of that propaganda on BBC. And then on the other side of things, on the LGBTQ trans for the trans community, you know, this stuff is being pushed into our entertainment, our TV series, our music. You know, it's everywhere in our concerts, in, you know, in all sorts of things, in all facets of life, really. And it's being pushed to our into our education, towards our kids as well. You know, they're being taught about gender, you know, genital mutilation and gender conversion and all that, while simultaneously being taught to celebrate Refugee Week, or to pray 5 times a day, and being taught about the virtues of the Islamic culture, of Ramadan counting, and trying to infiltrate our education system with this nonsensical ideological propaganda. So I don't really understand all of this. You know, how on earth can the government push all of these ideologies into our education content without them trying to outcompete each other? You can't serve two masters, can you? You can't educate your kids or educate people in general and tell them that you can accept both, be culturally tolerant to both the Islamic community and the transgender LGBTQ community. They're not simpatico, they just don't mix. And the funny thing is that the Labour government, the Tories, and Reform, by the way, I'm going to include Nigel Farage and Reform into the conversation. They believe that they cannot isolate the Islamic community, and that they're going to do everything they can to pander towards this Muslim Islamic community so they can win votes. Believe it or not, the Muslims, the Islamic people, they're not going to vote for you. They're not going to vote for Labour. They've already demonstrated that in the Ilford by-election. The candidate who won was an independent, and she was a Muslim. Because of that, you know, the Ilford is mainly a Muslim infested area. I say infested, and yes, I do use that word, because Ilford, I've been there in London. It's an absolute shithole. Okay, there's dodgy people running dodgy businesses everywhere, and they all come from a certain demographic. You know what I'm talking about. But yeah, like, I just don't see how the Islamic community can live harmoniously in full compatibility with people in this country, especially in particular with the transgender or homosexual community. You know, we've seen in other countries before that there have been terrorist attacks conducted on homosexual grounds, on gay bars or gay nightclubs and stuff, and this and that. So, you know, that could be just around the corner. We could just see this inner turmoil between the homosexual transgender community and the Islamic community. These two ideologies, they just don't mix. There's nothing harmonious between two of them. They're completely opposite in terms of their beliefs, their fundamentals, their doctrines. So, yeah, it's all a bit strange, but anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments below. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day whilst I enjoy the rest of my walk in this lovely, lovely park. Anyways, Guardian Most clocking out. I'll see you next time.